Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020, and today we're going to take a look at the 2020 Senate elections and pretty much just outline the changes in these races. Right now, I would say that Donald Trump is probably at one of his lowest points in the presidency in terms of overall approval from the country. Yes, his approval rating may be hovering at around a solid 43% nationwide, but in terms of the way that America is just being viewed by its own citizens, I mean, in the same poll that shows him at a 43% approval rating, 59% of those same respondents consider him to be a racist. So even though some people may think that Donald Trump is a racist, his disapproval ratings are not reflecting those exact numbers, which means that there are Americans who are fine with President Trump, at least based off what they would consider to be a racist president. And that's not my own personal beliefs. That's just what the polling data indicates. And I honestly would say that's not necessarily beneficial for Donald Trump's campaign whatsoever. And when we're talking about the coattail effect, if President Trump is underperforming in a number of key states, that's a very strong warning sign for a lot of these Republicans looking to win in races that might otherwise be deemed, lean Republican. Major example is Arizona, a state that 4 years ago in 2016 had 2 Republican senators, and it looks like at the end of 2020 we'll have 2 Democratic senators. So a lot can change in just a very short period of time. And, in 2018, that was the first time we saw a lot of Democratic resistance in a number of these key states, states such as Texas, Arizona, and Georgia, all with statewide races that either went to the Democrats or were closer than they were in 2016. So if they reflect any type of similar turnout levels for the Democratic Party, again, bad news for the GOP. So we're going to go ahead and just go through this really quickly. I don't want to make this video too long. Last time it was around 20 minutes long, and I can understand why other people might want to speed it up. So I'm fine with doing that completely. I will try to do a revision on the swing state Senate analysis that I did in the past. I did them in May and April, and they may be outdated considering the fact that Kansas might actually choose the right GOP nominee coming up, at least in terms of electability chances. So once we actually get our solidified nominees, probably not now, probably September, especially with a number of things happening. Oh my gosh, today's primary day. I need to go. Geez, I didn't go vote in person. I can't believe I forgot that. But so besides that, looking at the Senate map, we need to make sure that we have all the solidified Republican and Democratic nominees, because they definitely do take a major impact, which I will discuss once we get to individual states. So let's go ahead and characterize all of the safe states. Now, I know it may be surprising for some of you guys if you haven't been on my channel long. States such as New Mexico and Virginia, I consider to be safe. And that is because these states have a retiring incumbent in New Mexico and an incumbent in Virginia. And these are 2 solid Democratic states. I do think that the Democratic Party is going to outperform their 2016 margins. And especially in a Senate race where we're talking about well-known, either an incumbent senator or a well-known state official in the state of New Mexico running for that position, I would say that it is very likely that the Democratic Party does have a very solid hold on these states, especially with already large wins on the presidential level. I'm going to go ahead and just characterize all of the likely states. These are states such as Minnesota and Colorado. These are likely states I would consider for the Democratic Party, even though they were close in 2016. I don't necessarily think that Donald Trump's dwindling approval rating nor his more alienated base is going to benefit any type of down ballot Republican. Donald Trump will probably be the best performing Republican in every single state that we're looking at. Maybe not in some safe Republican states such as Idaho or Tennessee, but I will say that Donald Trump will likely outperform the Republicans running against Tina Smith in Minnesota, or against Cory Gardner in Colorado, or the Republican, whoever it is, running against Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire. These states, I honestly think, are going to be pretty safe for the Democratic Party. Not much to worry about for them there. For the GOP, they do have their set of, actually, I didn't fill in Oregon. They do have their set of likely states, and that includes states such as South Carolina and Mississippi, which I actually considered safe, my bad. Texas, I will include. Yes, John Cornyn may not necessarily be as popular as Ted Cruz was, but he's also not as unpopular as Ted Cruz. While their approval ratings may be slightly different in the sense that Ted Cruz is approved by more people it's because he's known by more people. John Cornyn is hovering mid-30s in terms of approval rating, and even though it was close in 2018, Beto O'Rourke visited every single county in Texas and had a lot of energy behind him and a lot of money in the race that we're not seeing the same type of energy for the Democratic Party in Texas this time around. As we look over into states such as South Carolina and Mississippi, we're seeing the same exact matchup that we saw with an 8-point race in Mississippi, which is news in itself. Mississippi had an 8-point Senate race, a narrow win for the GOP, and could be within a 15% margin at least in 2020. As for the state of South Carolina, Jamie Harrison, while polling neck and neck with Lindsey Graham, realistically, it's South Carolina. It's going to be probably a likely state on the presidential level. Could be narrower here, but at the end of the day, Lindsey Graham is going to carry the state of South Carolina, I can say without a doubt. As we move across to states such as Kentucky, Kentucky is a very interesting state. Mitch McConnell has been the most unpopular senator for a very long time. In fact, there's only one person in the United States Senate who is more unpopular than Mitch McConnell, and it is Susan Collins. In 2016, she was the most popular senator in the country. In 2020, she is the most unpopular senator in the country. So again, when we go back over to Maine and we take a look at the Northeast, you'll see why that race, when I made these projections back in mid 2017, so around June, July time, I considered Maine to be a safe Republican seat. And I wasn't wrong at the time. Susan Collins was one of the most popular senators that we've seen and one of the most bipartisan senators that the Democratic Party consistently supported. She was supported by her colleague, who served in the United States Senate. Also, I probably sound sick because I had a dentist appointment today and I can't feel half my face. And it also hurts really bad. So it's like I can't feel it, but I also can, but whatever. So I'm definitely going to sound a little bit different in this video. But Kentucky, I will say, Amy McGrath may be a formidable opponent, but I do think that Mitch McConnell will have a pretty solid victory over her. Allison Lundergan Grimes had a very strong campaign in 2014, faltered near the end, and there was a Republican wave, but I will say Kentucky is Kentucky. That was also not during a presidential election year. She is a statewide official now, so she did have a political future past that. I will say the same for Amy McGrath, but I honestly don't see her winning in this race. It's more so of a pipe dream to beat the incumbent majority leader in the United States Senate. I don't know what happened to my voice right there. But taking a look around the country, I will say that there's probably maybe one more seat that I would consider likely for the GOP. I'm actually going to move over oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? The state of Kansas into the likely Republican column. For Georgia and Kansas, I will say both of these states, they, again, are Republican states on the presidential level. We have an incumbent, David Perdue, in the state of Georgia, who isn't unpopular. The reason why it's not safe is because Georgia is going to be a lot closer on the presidential level. I will probably expect David Perdue to outperform President Trump on the Senate level compared to his national presidential margin. But that's probably one of the only exceptions. In Kansas, Donald Trump is definitely going to have a lot more solid of a victory than whatever type of Republican nominee there is. Barbara Bollier has a pretty strong hold on the Senate race over Chris Kobach. And right now, I'm moving this race into the likely Republican column because he is more than likely not going to be the Republican nominee. Though he was the front runner for a very long period of time, the Kansas GOP is taking out ads against their own Senate candidate, against their own Senate front runner. That's the equivalent of the RNCC taking out ads against Donald Trump in the 2016 primary. Yes, certain candidates, of course, put out ads against President Trump, but there was never really a very large party opposition to him. They were sort of uncomfortable with the idea of him becoming the nominee, but they weren't directly opposed to it. Chris Kobach, they are trying to usurp that from him. He was the front runner, and the most recent, though, insider poll for Roger Marshall shows Roger Marshall ahead in this state. I honestly think that the GOP is going to have a very strong influence on the outcome of this primary, and probably land Chris Kobach a loss here before you could even reach the general election, because the GOP, if Chris Kobach is the nominee, they're going to have to worry about Kansas on top of all of the other toss-up seats. It's might as well as they should focus on just a couple. But if Kansas goes to Chris Kobach, you'll see a complete revision of the likely characterization I have for that race. So let's go ahead and talk about some lean states. We have some states that are actually pretty surprising. Michigan, John James is running again. I realistically do not see him winning in this Senate race. I will stick with my general characterization of it being a lean state. It will be close on the presidential level, and it'll likely follow in the Senate election as well. Michigan, Gary Peters may not be as popular as Debbie Stabenow, nor will he probably win by the same amount in terms of the margin, because it is a presidential election year, and Donald Trump will probably have a better margin either of loss or victory. than the previous Republicans did in 2018. But I will say that Michigan will go to the Democratic Party. For Arizona, this one I'm actually considering moving into the likely Democratic column. I know that's a very bold assumption, but at this point in time, the Republican Party is hitting a low point in this country. And Arizona, we could likely see a 4 to 5 point margin for Mark Kelly. Right now, polling data indicates in the most recent OH Predictive Insights poll, which was only off by, it actually it favored the Republicans by around 4% in 2018. Show him ahead by 13% statewide. They showed Martha McSally ahead in the original polls when she was first appointed, but Mark Kelly has soon grown very grown in popularity across the state and become a very realistic and very viable pickup for the Democratic Party. And recent polling data shows them ahead by double digits. And if it does outperform, the Democrats do outperform based off their 2018 comparison, that would be a 17-point margin statewide. Not saying it's super likely, nor is it actually even plausible, but Arizona, I could say, will go to the Democratic Party in 2020. And it is very likely we end up with 2 Democratic senators from the state of Arizona rather than 2 Republicans. For the state of Iowa, this one is very interesting to me. I think Joni Ernst is in for a pretty strong run against her here. Iowa is going to be narrowed down in the presidential level without a doubt, and I think that it will follow in the United States Senate. Donald Trump had a very solid margin here in 2016, but keep in mind the last time Biden was on the ticket, he carried Iowa with Obama twice. So, Biden's appeal to increased amongst white voters, increased amongst minority voters, amongst pretty much every voting demographic compared to Hillary Clinton. I could see how the race could narrow up on the Senate level because of down ballot voting, and also the fact that there are more Democratic representatives. So when people vote Democrat on the House ballot, they're likely to vote Democrat on the Senate ballot as well, even though in 2016 they may have voted for the GOP. I will say that President Trump will likely bring Joni Ernst to victory. She was a very much a rising star when she ran in 2014, but I don't see the same type of energy for her this time around. And also, it's not a Republican wave year. So it really all depends on President Trump's performance in the state, to put it frankly. For states such as Georgia Special and Alabama, I will actually say that Alabama and Georgia Special are probably going to be lean states. I think Doug Jones' firm opposition to police brutality is probably something that's going to hurt him in Alabama. His victory in 2017 was based off of increased African-American turnout, the likes that we haven't seen in special elections in a very long time. It was a Democratic pickup for the first time in 25 years in Alabama. In fact, the last Democratic senator from Alabama is one of the incumbent Republicans, Richard Shelby. He just switched parties around the same time Newt Gingrich did. So Alabama, I think, is going to flip back to the GOP. And Georgia special election, if Kelly Loeffler is the Republican nominee, boy, they're going to be in for a lot of trouble. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Doug Collins is probably going to take it. So that puts the Republicans at 49, the Democrats at 48. That leaves 3 toss-up seats. Now, previously, I characterized in my recent election night, Tom Tillis winning in North Carolina, Steve Bullock losing in Montana, and Sarah Gideon winning in Maine. I'm going to stick with Sarah Gideon's victory in Maine. Again, we're hitting a low point for the GOP. I think that Maine will go into a lean margin. Yes, it will be close, but I don't think it'll be as close as it was even a week ago. Again, these predictions are if the election was held today, and I think that Maine voters are probably going to be pretty solid for Sarah Gideon this time around, especially with, again, Susan Collins being the most unpopular senator nationwide. And Maine is not necessarily a safe Republican state. That only works in Kentucky, and the margin is a lot closer than it is on the presidential level. For Maine, that state is probably going to flip to the Democratic Party. That effectively puts them at 49, and the the Republican Party at 49. So I actually do think that when we're looking at Montana and we're looking at North Carolina, I think Montana and North Carolina will probably go to the Democratic Party very narrowly. Again, while some of you guys may say, oh, I'm biased towards the left, look at the state of the country and then get back to me. Because we're talking about a very low point for President Trump, and these numbers are definitely going to change. I don't think on election day the Democrats are going to get 51 and the Republicans are going to get 49, but this is the state of the country at this point. With an angered African-American base, they're going to turn out in the same numbers that they did in 2008 and 2012, without a doubt. They did in 2018, and they will likely do so again. For the state of Montana, Steve Bullock is a popular governor. He's not imposing too many COVID-19 restrictions, and while that may be against the interest of the public in terms of public health, the overall general feeling in states such as Montana and surrounding Republican states is mainly centered towards freedom, in the sense that they shouldn't be forced to wear a mask and things such as that. So Montana, I do think that Steve Bullock could narrowly edge out a victory. We're talking about, again, this is a very circumstantial election where the election would be held today. And if you take a look at my previous presidential election prediction, Donald Trump, again, is at a very low point, and that is never going to be beneficial for down ballot races, the House elections, Senate elections, and presidential election. I'm going to say that the Democrats do take back the majority, 51-49. I think that this is definitely up for revision in the future, especially with a number of things changing nationwide every single day. But at this point in time, on June 2nd, 2020, the Democratic Party is probably at one of their highest points they will be this entire election season. Forget about a convention bump. This is something that this entire situation that are unfolding across the country are only going to benefit the Democratic Party at this point. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all tomorrow.